Hello everyone. Welcome to another session on writing an API using plain Golang. In this session, we'll understand about routing in Go. More specifically, we'll talk about parameterized writing in Go, and then we'll finally prepare a boilerplate project structure for writing the API in Go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write three routes, that is slash get data and slash get data with a parameter, and then I'm gonna tell you that how the routing in Go actually behaves when we want to achieve different types of routing or achieve different routes in play Golang. So I'll be making use of an handler due to the simplicity of it. So in my screen, you can see a program that says, let's start with the main function. It says, okay, I'm handling a function. If the route is slash, then go to any route method. This is what the any route method is. It says, okay, if the route is get data, then go to get data route. And if the route is get data slash one, then go to get data with route ID. Now here I'm saying, okay, server listening on port this, and I'm saying, okay, it should listen on port 8000. I'm using default server. In any route, it just print any route. In get data route, it print get data route. In get data without the route, it print get data with ID, and then it will finally print the value of the ID that we have passed as well. Now let's run this program. Now it says server listening on port 8000. Let's go to Chrome and let's see. I'll say localhost server listening on 8000. I'll give the route as slash. Let's say it's a in any route handling. It is behaving as per expectation, right? This in any route handling. Now let's see. Let's give it as a parameter as say get data. Let's see. It says in get data route handling. That's perfect. Now give the parameter as get data slash one. Now let's see. It says in get data rate with ID route method with value as one. Now it is also fetching the value that we have passed as one. Now what if I'll pass the value as say two? What will happen? So it's not recognizing it because the route here that we have defined is a very keen match that Golang does internally. It says, okay, you are trying to match it with one, but one does not exist here. Rather, it exists with two. That's why it is considering it as in the slash category, and it is passing the route to the any route method here. You see, if I will do it as three, it will pass it to any route method. It will consider it as a slash, or it will consider that this is any other route that I have to handle apart from the routes. Those are specifically considered here. Mm. But if I will route as one, it will say it will go to this method, get data with route ID method. Why this is happening? Because this route is exactly matching with this route. Now, what if I want to handle anything that comes after get data or any number as a parameter? So what I will do is I'll just remove it here. Just see, I have removed it. I'm saying, okay, get data slash, and after that, anything can be there. Let me run the program. It says allow access. Now let me go back to the browser. Now let's see. If I say get data slash one, it says, okay, it is within the route method. The value you have passed is one. If I say two, same, it says it is two. If I'll pass three, it says, okay, it is three, right? Now, as you have seen here is, I have passed specific method to each and every route to handle. Like if the route is this, then go here. If the route is this, go here. Now, what if I want to have only one method that is specific to route? Now, let's comment this for some time. What I want to do here is, for both of these methods, I want to have one method called, say, handle. And let's comment these as well for time being for you. I will say whether the route is anything, just call the handle method. I have copied over the definition of handle method for you just to save time. I will show you that as well here. This is what the handle method is. Now see what I'm trying to do here is, I'm saying if the route is get data, go to handle. If the route is get data slash anything, then also go to handle. Now inside the handle, I'm saying I'm trying to identify a pattern. I'm saying that reject dot compile, and this if the pattern is like this. Now in this what I'm saying, if the pattern is like say get data, and after that this is nothing to identify the integer in the regex. So I'm saying if the pattern is like this slash get data slash any integer, then keep it in a pattern and then match this pattern with the URL path. Now what the URL path is? This is the URL path. Match it with the URL path. And if the match is coming, that simply means that there is a value in the URL. If match is not coming, that means there is no value in the URL. Similar to how we are saying, okay, if the value is coming, that comes to method specifying to this route, else come to the method specifying to this route. So I'll say no value is present here, and I should not print the value here. And if I want to print the value, I should use this split method. Now I will say string dot split, and I will say this. So what I am doing here is if there is an ID specified in the get data route, then I'm writing, okay, value of the IT is there. If there is no ID specified, then I'm saying that no value is present. But the change here is whether the route is this or whether the route is this, I'm calling the same function. Now let me close this and let me run this program. So this says server listing on port 8000. Now let's see how the value changed. It says value is 3. Now what if I do not give the value? It says no value is present. So simple. So these are the ways how we can handle the routing in Golang, and as well how we can handle the parameterized routing as well in different scenarios. Now, what question comes to my mind when I have looked into this routing is I have to write a lot of manual code unnecessarily, right? Like here, I have to write the whole regex to identify the ID. Now, for specific to each and every route, I am getting a lot of things. Now here, for example, what I have done is for get data slash, I am trying to, now here, what I have done is I have taken out the value that I am putting after 3. Now, what if I have a scenario, I'm saying get data slash ID3 value 4. Now, I want to map it like within the get data, the ID value is 3 and value of the value is 4. Right? So in that case, I have to write either a lot of regex or a lot of logic manually to fetch these values out of the URL. That's where the existence of different frameworks comes, like Gorilla comes in, Bigo comes in, Gin comes in. So what these frameworks does is, on these frameworks has written the implementation of everything on top of this plain Golang, and they provide you the direct method that you can use to fetch the query strings out of the URL or to fetch the output or the IDs or anything from the URL. So that's where the existence of all these frameworks comes in. So I'll be covering those frameworks as well in my different playlists, but here the target is to understand how exactly plain Golang works. Now, since we have understand how this routing is working in Golang, now let's understand what in a real world scenario, if I have to write a API in plain Golang, so what I will do. So for me, it will be simply, I will be creating a structure for my project first, right? So now what should be the structure and how I will create the structure? Let's talk about this. Now there is a very famous pattern in uh, API structure that's called as an MVC, that's model view controller. Now, model, anything related to data is model, view, anything related to view or the presentation layer is in view, and controllers, anything related to your logic is in controllers. So normally what happens is the browser calls the view, view calls the controllers, and controllers ultimately call the model, and ultimately the reverse flow is how you get back data to. So we'll try to achieve that model view controller method in your. So what we'll say is the view is the route, because route is where everything will start. From that route, we'll pass the logic to the controller. Now controller will pass the logic to the model, and ultimately the model will return data back, right? So we'll try to achieve that. So what I will do is, let me close this for it for time being. And here, if you see here the project structure, so it says main.go, and every bit of route has been written in main.go only, and we are done. So the same program that I have written here is, I will structurize this program. So let's do one thing. Let me create a folder called router here. Inside that, I'll say router.go. In the router.go, I will say package router. Now this package router will have a function called init. Inside this function, it will have these things. It will have these things. Okay, now comes the controller part. Now the controller is the, now let me call the controller. I'll say controller. Now inside the controller, I'll say there is a file called anyroute.go. It says package controller. And, and in the package controller, we have anyroute method in this. Similar way, it has two more files. The name of these files are, first is get data route file. So inside this get data route, we have get data function. Now the third one is the get data with ID route. So this file name is here, get data with ID. For consistency, let's start with this. And here as well, for consistency, let's start with a smaller case. Now let's come to main. I'll say get data with route. So see, what I have done is, this is a router. Inside the router, I have written all the code that is related to this specific router. And now router will call controller to fetch the data to. Currently, I'm not writing the model layer. Controller will simply return things like this. The purpose here is to make you understand how controller, router, and main will be working in closely with each other. So basically, see the structure here is, now main will call the router. It will pass everything to the router, and based on the route that has come, router will call the controller function or the classes of the controller. If we now, let me import the package here. I'll say demo controller. Here I will say controller dot any route. Now this is the any route here. Perfect. And I have to say controller dot this. I have to say controller dot this. This is all about it. Now the same thing, what I will do in the main.go is, I will import a new package called import demo slash router, because main.go will call the router, and I will say router dot init. That is all. And you see, I'm done. Now what is the problem here? It says expected package, or I'm sorry for it. I have to import it below this. Now you see what I have done is, main is calling the router. A router is calling the controllers based on where what controller has to be called. Now, but there's an error that we are getting. Now this says could not import demo router, could not find router in any of these paths from Go root or from Go path. Now let's try to build it first, or let's try to run it, and then try to understand what exactly the problem is. I'll say go run main.go. Oh, the problem is this. So basically, this is not able to create the packages. The program is not able to create the packages, and that's why it is not able to import these packages that I'm trying to use. So here, what I'm doing is I'm trying to use package name of with the name of router in my main.go, and I'm trying to use a method of this package. And now inside the router, what I'm doing is I'm trying to import the package controller, and I'm trying to make use of the methods of the controller, but I'm not able to use it. Now, why it is the case? Because my project do not contain go.mod file. And after Go 1.16 version and in 1.16 version, Go has started introducing the dependency manager that they call it as an go.mod, and they what they call it as a mod. And they say that for importing the package and working with the package, you have to work with go.mod. So if you want to learn more about go.mod and how dependency management works in Go, so you can refer to another session in my Go tutorial that has explained everything about it. So let me quickly create a go.mod file here. So what I will do here is, let me quickly close it. I will say go mod init and the name of the file. Let me show you here of what will happen when I will do this. As soon as I'll press enter, it has created a go.mod file for me. Now I have to sort the dependencies related to my project. So what I will do is I will do go mod ID. I'll press enter. Now using this, Go had already modified my go.mod. It has set all the dependencies automatically for me. And if there are any dependencies missing, it has downloaded and done it for me. Now let's run the program. I'll say go run main.go. So it runs now. Now let me show you that this structure of the project as well is working perfectly. Now let me say first I'll start with slash. It says in any route handling. Now I'll say slash get data. It says in get data route. Now I will say slash 1, value is 1. Say 2, value is 1. I'll say 3, value is 3. Right? So now this structure is working perfectly. Now let's do one thing. So what we will do next is we'll write a model or we'll add a model to this. And in that case, what will happen is controller will call the model, and based on the ID that is being passed to the model, model will return the data back to the controller, and ultimately controller will return it back to the browser saying that, okay, this is the ID that you have passed and this is the value of the ID. Now let's create one more package here that's called as model. Inside this model, I'll create a class called model.go. I'll say package name is model. So I've already copied over the things for you. And now here, this model has a method called getData that accepts an ID of type string and it returns in string. Now there is a map of type string and string that has a key and a value A, key and a value B. So now what this data essentially is doing, if we'll pass 1, so it will return the value related to 1, that is A. If we'll pass 2, it will return the value related to 2, that is B. So this is what this model this is what it will do. So now let's go to get data with route ID, and here what I will do is I will make use of the functions of the model. So I will now what I have done here is now in this ID I have done a string.split to in the URL route to identify the last part of the route. Now, basically, if the last part of the route is 3, it will come as 3. Now, inside the model, I am passing that ID to the model.getData method. Now, getData method is this. In this method, we have told, okay, based on the ID, just return the value related to the ID, like the ID is 1, value is 2, A, ID is 2, value is B. Just return the value, and inside this route, we are finally writing that the value is whatever it is. Now let's run this program and show you of how exactly this is working. Before we run this program, I want to show you the structure of the program. You see now how our structure is modularized for our program. It says main.go will talk to the router, then router will talk to the controller, and controller will talk to the model. Now let's run the program. Okay, it says server listening on port 8000. Let's go here and run this. It says value is C. If I will change it to 4, it will say value is D. If I will change it to 5, value is E. If I'll change it to 1, value is 1, right? Now let's talk about this structure a bit more. Now what is exactly happening here is, once my program is initiated, the main function is called, then main function is calling the router, then router based on the route, the logic that has been written in the router, based on the route, it is calling specific controller. It can be any controller that must be matching the route. And then based on that controller, it are calling different models. You see now this modularized approach, with this modularized approach, I know if in my project, if any new router comes in, that means I have to write that router inside the router. Now, related to that router, if there is any logic that I have to return is, I have to write in this in a new class. Now, if any new model related to that controller will be created, now that model will always be inside the model or inside the model package. So this is how we can modularize or we can structure our API in plain Golang. So this is all about this session. There are many more sessions to come related to the APIs in Golang and covering this many more frameworks in Golang. So please like, subscribe, and comment if you really like my videos. Thank you very much.